I feel like every fiber has this certain kind of energy in it, and it blooms a certain way because of the nature of the fiber itself and how it's shaped and how that sheep made it. It's so cool. I realized that this yarn was from an unfinished World War II army knit for the soldiers, and that was given out by the Red Cross for people to knit things for the armies. Is a really good example. I'm like, I like this. I'm not sure other people are gonna like this. You don't know what's gonna take off necessarily, but it's really fun when something does. We are constantly searching for off the beaten path wools that you won't find in any yarn store. So we are constantly coming across things that most people would not have heard of, much less felt or had the chance to knit with.
Anne Hanson is a celebrated knitwear designer, teacher, and the creative force behind Knitspot and Bare Naked Wools. A lifelong knitter with a background in fashion and graphic design, she brings a deep understanding of fit, fabric, and construction to every piece. Her work, ranging from intricate lace shawls to cozy socks, has been featured in leading publications like Knitty, Interweave Knits, and Twist Collective. And she was part of Brooklyn Tweed's very first Wool People collection. With Bare Naked Wools, Anne champions minimally processed natural fiber yarns, pairing them with thoughtful patterns and storytelling through her popular yarn clubs. She's also taught thousands of knitters worldwide through her Vogue Knitting Live appearances and her Craftsy online classes. I first met Anne at a yarn shop in Albany, New York, way back in 2011. She was kind enough to mention my budding little website, New Stitch Day, on her blog, and it was that initial boost in traffic that launched my professional knitting career. Now, almost 15 years later, I'm proud to be partnering with Anne again to share her expertise with a new generation of knitters. And speaking of expertise, you can learn directly from Anne during the Fearless Knitter Summit, happening August 21st through the 24th. It's a free 4-day online event where knitters from around the world come together to learn new skills, get inspired, and maybe even finish that project from 2019. Anne's teaching 2 sessions that you're going to want in your knitting toolbox. In Yarn Smart, 4 fiber facts to transform your knitting, she'll help you finally understand why that sweater you knit in alpaca could double as a sauna. Then, in the Nothing Stitch, learning the language of lace, she'll decode lace patterns so you can knit them without feeling like you're reading hieroglyphics. You'll also hear from designers like Woolly Wormhead, Chantel Miyagashima of Knititude, and Chandi Agee of Expression Fiber Arts, plus a whole lineup of other brilliant instructors and panelists. And if you can't make it to every session live, we've got your back. Our Summit Super Pass gives you lifetime access to the recordings, plus a huge bundle of bonus patterns, classes, and resources to level up your knitting. With more than 25 sessions across 4 days, there's something for everyone, whether you just picked up the needles or you've been knitting for 60 years. You can find all the details and grab your free ticket at yarnist.co/fearless. And without further ado, let's jump into our interview with Anne Hanson. All right, Anne, thank you so much for doing this. I'm really happy to have you here. I know that before you got started, you were already working in some other creative field. What was that, and what sort of created the transition for you to designing knitwear?
Just to be clear, I've been designing knitwear since I was a teenager pretty much. So I had already been just designing for myself and my family and with hopes of breaking into publishing. And at that time, which was in the cave days of technology, you had to publish in a magazine and someone had to agree to publish you. And I had no idea how to break into that. But I worked in the fashion business for many years. And then just previous to making my living at knitwear design, I worked in publishing as a production artist. So producing book layouts and things like that. And I married those two together with my knitting passion, which at that point was something I did in all of my free time basically. And a lot when I worked in the fashion business, the designers that I worked with would always encourage me to, you should do something with that knitting. You're so good. It's the stuff you make is so cool. And I never just really knew how to do it. We didn't have quite as many tools for moving that forward as we do now. And then when I was working in publishing, I realized that I could publish my patterns myself and in PDF format. And at that time, the internet was new, but things were starting to happen, and we were starting to be able to deliver digital material via PDF and downloading and things like that. And I just thought I can put my patterns in PDF format and people can download them anywhere in the world and knit from them. And I wasn't the first person to think of that, but I was on a really front wave of knitwear designers thinking of doing that. So I was in a real early stage of publishing, self publishing, and disseminating my work myself. That was in 2006. And I can't believe it, but it's almost 20 years later now. We're almost at a 20-year anniversary for Knitspot. Yeah.
So, how would you say that your experience in fashion and publishing has influenced your actual design work?
Definitely, I'm really focused on designing wearable items that can be mixed and matched with things in your wardrobe that are woven clothes or things that you buy in the store or things that you sew. I really believe fully that hand knit should be worn and used and loved and molded to your body. So I like things to fit really well so that they're comfortable and you can wear them every day or just for special occasions. But especially, it's important to me that they're comfortable and that you feel good in them. So I think those things come from the fashion side of it, just very wearable fashion. I know not all fashion looks comfortable or is comfortable, but the large percentage of it is intended to be wearable. And in publishing, so I worked for an educational publisher, and I think the writing of instructions that I was able to hone from my experience working as a production artist, like super detail oriented work, super important to be perfect when it goes to press. Those are important things when you're designing knitting patterns and writing them. And then instructionally, just really clear instructions that truly start at A and go to Z. And that goes back to my teaching background. Even before the fashion business, I was a teacher and working with little kids, and you had to be very literal. Pick up your toys and put them in the box. I think all of my life experience contributes to the product that I produce.
Of course. So, you said that you've been making your own design since you were much younger.
Mhm.
What would you say your early designs look like, and how do they compare to the work that you make today?
The work that I do today fits better for sure. I've learned a huge amount about how to make things fit since my first sweaters and things. And other than that, I try to create more style lines and more detail work than I probably would have back then. But I still like to experiment with stitch patterns and cables and all different sorts of textures. I love designing with all over texture, and that can be difficult when you're sizing patterns, but it's of great interest to me to create complicated textures in the body of a piece. I don't design a lot of super simple items, although I have some.
So, when you're designing a project, what comes first? Do you start with a stitch pattern? Do you have more of just an inspirational idea? Is it the silhouette? Is it the yarn?
Sometimes it's the yarn first, and I just think, what can I design with this yarn? It's got these qualities, and what will show off the yarn the best? I would say that the silhouette is really important to me to get started. What kinds of things do people seem to respond to and like the best? How can I make that fresh and different and catchy? And as far as textures, I love textures. I will sit and read my stitch dictionaries and books like that, and just like their magazines, and mark off patterns that look interesting to me and swatch them for fun. So I've got quite a library in my head of all these different stitch patterns. And so what I try to do when I start designing something is grab from all three buckets at the same time. What silhouette can I fit this stitch pattern into that will enhance it? And what yarn will make that whole thing come to life? And then I start swatching to test what I'm conjecturing will work. And the winner is dinner.
So, do you remember your very first knitted project?
My very first knitted project was a scarf for my dad, of course. And it was just a plain stockinette scarf. And I don't remember if it was nice or not. My grandmother taught me to knit, but this was a project didn't know to put like a border on the side, so I knit all this stockinette scarf and it was curly, so it
Okay.
curled up at the sides. And it was knit with yarn that my grandmother gave me, that was repurposed from a neighbor's knitting basket. And later in life, I realized that this yarn was from an unfinished World War II army knit for the soldiers because it was khaki, really scratchy wool yarn. And that was given out by the Red Cross for people to knit things for the army. So later in life, I realized that's what this yarn was. And in the 1960s, it was given to me to make my first project. And I knitted a scarf for my dad. And God bless him, he wore it for at least 2 decades. Like he
Oh,
always wore
great.
that scarf. Yeah, it was sweet that he always wore it. As scratchy and curly as it was, it did get worn. So that's a real bump in your confidence to have someone really seem to like at least what you knit for them.
Of course, and that someone as important to you as your father, I think that's a great way for him to demonstrate his love.
Yeah, of course he loved it that I made it for him.
Like we've all made stuff for people that we love, and they may not quite realize how much we love them by the effort that we've put into that
Yeah.
thing. So it's very validating when they actually wear it on a consistent basis and not just that one
Yes.
time that you all went out after Christmas.
Yeah. I have to say, since we had my grandmother knit all the time and my mother sewed, she did a lot of sewing, and my father did carpentry, and we had a lot of working with our hands in our family. And so I do think that I was surrounded by people who appreciated the things that they received for the most part. That was a good early experience for me.
Moving back to your design work, what would you say makes a pattern successful? So not necessarily like by how much does it sell, but that you're happy with the finished product.
I love when it really does fit right without having to be constantly like pulled or whatever. But really for me, when people start knitting it and they really like it, they like making it and then they like wearing it and then they recommend other people knit it, that's to me a sign of success for sure.
Do you have any projects that kind of took off that you weren't expecting to be a big hit?
There are a lot actually that I'm like, I like this. I'm not sure other people are going to like this. And then it just takes off. Box top is a really good example. I thought it was cute and so I thought people would like it, but it just constantly sells a lot of patterns for me. And it's an easy knit. It's fun. The yarn is really nice and squishy. I'm not sure what it is about that design. I did an adult version pullover, then I did a cardigan, all really popular. Now I'm working on a baby and child's version and stupid cute. It's really cute. It's true. You don't know what's going to take off necessarily, but it's really fun when something does.
Now, you're also the owner of a yarn company. You've built a brand around undyed and natural yarns. What took you down that path?
I started hand spinning in like 2006 or 7 and I really took to it. It's a different thing than knitting. I really loved working with making yarn and the action of making it, the action of the fiber and what it's actually doing when it becomes yarn. And I started exploring different breeds of yarn. It just opened up a whole new way to look at wool to me in that, oh, you can get wool from all the different sheep breeds and play with it and make yarn with it. And I just hadn't really been exposed to that. I knew about merino yarn and I knew about BFL, but as a remote thing, I knew about the sheep involved. And hand spinning really made all of it more real and hands-on. And so after a few years, I just thought, I think a lot more knitters would like to know about this. And I also think a lot more knitters would love to be able to experience fiber without any of chemicals or dyes on it, like the real thing. And I also think a lot of knitters would love to work with yarns that have some of the qualities of hand spun. So small batch processing with a smaller artisan mill will give you that. Will give you yarns that maybe are a tiny bit uneven or have still some, I call them notes from the farm, little pieces of grass and stuff in the wool. But because they're not drowning the wool in chemicals to clean it or to straighten it or to make it consistent. And we started making yarns like that. And it has taken a decade for it to come to what it is now, but it did take off like fairly well. And we've had our ups and downs with it. But along with producing the yarn, I've constantly produced educational materials and interviews and segments for people to learn more about the sheep. And I think it really has a following. And the knitters who participate, it has really deepened their appreciation for what they're working with.
So, how has your perspective on yarn changed, or like the fibers that you work with, now that you are someone who designs actual yarns versus before when you were just knitting with them?
Since learning to hand spin and then making our own semi commercial yarns, I can't express enough how I appreciate the variety of wool that's out there. There are 1,400 or so breeds of sheep, and every single one of them produces a slightly different fiber that is all wool. It's all chemically the same. The crimp is a little different, the colors are different, slightly different coarseness. And our employees laugh at me all the time because they'll be like, can you feel these two yarns and tell me what it is? And usually I can. And they're just like, I don't know how you do that. But if you handle it enough, you can. And it's just a wonderland out there of different fibers. I love the action that every fiber, I feel like every fiber has this certain kind and amount of energy in it, and it blooms to a certain way because of its nature, and it the stitches expand or lengthen according to the nature of the fiber itself and how it's shaped and how that sheep made it. It's so cool. And there are 1,400 different types of that out there. I do just love that about wool.
Are there any fibers that you've encountered that you're like, wow, this is just super interesting or unique that most people don't ever get a chance to handle?
Oh, definitely. We have a subscription program that we do, and we are constantly searching for off the beaten path wools that you won't find in any yarn store or very rarely. And so we are constantly coming across things that these wool that we got was like that. I was expecting it to be wonderful because the Faroe Islands, who wouldn't love something from there? But we got the fiber, the mill ran a couple tests, and we were like, I don't think so. I don't think this is going to work for us. And then the miller was like, I'm so happy you said that because I hated working with it. And that was really funny. And there are some wools that are really not meant for making knitting yarn with. They're not that kind of wool. But there's a still a large field of opportunity out there for us.
It's interesting. From my perspective, I do a lot of research on different yarns and different yarn companies, and just to shine a light on what's going on in the industry. And I'm often shocked at the number of small yarn companies that are out there that are all doing interesting things, whether they're hand dyers or they're actually manufacturing some really interesting stuff.
It's
Yeah,
true. The craft industry is really full of small businesses. It's almost, even by commercial standards, even a big yarn company is a small business to a company
sure.
like Malabrigo is really a commercial trade. So many people have been able to create their own livelihood in this industry. It's really wonderful that we can, if we can just keep it going.
Now, your yarn brand, Bare Naked Wools,
Mhm.
is known for obviously just letting the yarn be the star of the show, the fiber, without really being dyed or processed. How do you approach sourcing and working with fibers in a way that aligns with your values?
We want to be supporting farmers who produce wool or and who focus on wool. We have some breeds that are raised in this country in a way that does focus more on the wool than on the meat, as opposed to the way have a community of breeders that are very aware that they can make more money on their wool if it's nicer. So we do want to work with those people, and we want to ship their wool to a mill. And the way that we do our milling is the wool goes from the farm to the mill, and from there the stewardship of the wool is completely in the hands of the to Texas to be scoured and to somewhere else to be combed and then back again and then spun at the mill only into yarn. So the mill does all the shampooing and washing, and they pick it and card it, and if they have a comb and are using it, they comb it and then spin it. So that means that the mill is taking responsibility and showing off their ability to do that in the product that they produce. So that turns what is an effort to be sustainable and healthy and non-toxic and real and turns it into a product that is also knitter friendly and luscious and luxurious, which you want as well. You want people to love knitting with it. So we're trying to cover a whole bunch of bases there, but we think we're hitting the right balance. Our yarns are soft and bouncy and they are luxurious, and you can still feel the difference between each breed specific yarn. And even some of the colors within a breed are different feeling and they have a different loftiness just because that's what happens with wool. Some of the dark wool is coarser, slightly coarser than the light wool. And we don't do anything to the wool to make it consistent from one color to the next. Really, the question is like, why wouldn't you do it the sustainable, ethically sound way for all purposes? Because whether or not you're just curious, you should still not have something unhealthy in your hands and with as much time as you spend touching it and wearing it afterward. So I think you can assure the people who are looking for a sustainable product that it's there and still make curious and the tentative, you can draw them in with the fact that it's luxurious and nice to knit with. And oh, by the way, this is a really cool sheep and it's different than this other sheep. And they can go from one product in our store to another and try them all and really start to understand where their knitting yarn is coming from.
One of the things you're going to be talking about at the Fearless Knitters Summit is lace. What is it that you wish more knitters understood about lace knitting?
That you can make incredibly gorgeous and super complex looking pieces from lace patterns that are actually really easy to knit. So you can, with a couple of basic decrease maneuvers like SSK and knit two together and some yarn overs, there are a vast number of patterns that can be knit just with those skills. Everyone who's even mildly interested in lace should give it a try.
And I know that you're known for a lot of things, but I would say that your lace work is definitely something that stands out from my perspective. What is it
Mhm.
about lace that attracts you to turning it into something beautiful?
Lace has a real narrative effect on me. For me, the motifs in lace are you're building this thing. It's like making a drawing with yarn, and each motif has a story and often a historical background. Like it could be related to a region of the world or an ethnicity, and it could be a specialty of a certain culture. So that's really interesting to me. And the fact that lace patterns have different versions of the same pattern so that you can combine several patterns with a theme, that can be really interesting too. So the patterns might be related in one little element or several elements, and just some of the motifs are built up into larger size, others are kept small, and you can combine those in a single item like a shawl and have a complete narrative picture that I don't know, I just like it. And also, it keeps me interested in my knitting.
Because it's not boring repeats, right? You have to pay attention to what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. Even after you memorize it, it just has a rhythm to it. It's nice.
What is it that you still want to explore or try in your design work that you haven't yet?
I like doing color work, but I have not done a lot of color work designing. It intimidates me because when I start swatching, I have trouble predicting what the colors are going to do together. Even though I have a background in art and have dealt with fabrics and colors all my life, I wish I had a better kind of sense of where the light and dark should go. So that's the problem with that. I don't have enough spare time to just play with
Hmm.
color work so I can learn that. Because there was a time before I made this my full-time job that I felt like I knew what I was doing with it more. And I just had a lot more time to play with it. And I know that if I could take a week or two and go to a cabin and just do color work swatching, I would get what I needed out of that. So,
So, what's something about knitting that still surprises or challenges you even after all these years, aside from the
well,
color work?
you will always have to deal with some little bit of difference when you do yarn substitutions. Say you want to knit a pattern and you don't have the yarn that it calls for and it's not available locally and you have a huge stash, so you're looking to use something you already have. You really do need to swatch diligently and really assess what the result of that is. Is this really what you intended when you grab that yarn to knit something? Because anything you don't like about it is just going to grow geometrically if you dive into a project with it, if that makes sense. All yarns have their own characteristics. Some are drapey, some are springy, some are airy, some are smooth, and you want to be sure you're getting the right results. And the way that you can at least get pretty far is by swatching ahead of time and testing it out.
Yeah, I have been surprised. I've done a few sessions on the importance of swatching, and I always get responses from people that are like, "Oh, I never thought about it like that. That it's a
Hmm.
time to get to know your yarn. It's not just because you're trying to see, do you match the gauge."
Yeah. Yeah. It's not as much about stitches per inch as what is the yarn going to do? I can't tell you how many times I thought this would be so beautiful and in this cable pattern, and it just falls flat. It just doesn't have the body or a knit pearl texture that just disappears in the texture of the yarn.
Absolutely. And I've had my own experiences where I bought a yarn because it felt really nice in the skein, and then you knit it up, and because of the way it was plied or whatever, like the stitches don't look quite right in the fabric. And so it's, oh, okay, yeah, this isn't the right thing for this project. So what is it that you hope is the legacy that you leave with your work? Not that we want to get morbid, but what is it that what do you want to be known for, or that you hope to create?
um, I never think about that. That's so funny that you ask. I think people do appreciate me for the amount of knowledge that I've accrued over the years and that I do love to share it. And I bring that to my products, and I love writing patterns. I love finding the language that brings it from me to you in a way that allows you to make it and feel good about it. Like giving you a higher sense of self-esteem because you made something you never thought you could make step by using my pattern, and you came away from it feeling, "Oh, I'm a knitter." That's everything to me. I feel like if I could know how many people that had that, I'd feel satisfied with my life, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. I can say for my part that I appreciate your generosity. You have always been willing to take a chance on my crazy ideas, and without any hesitation. And I truly would owe definitely part of my career to you just taking a chance and being nice enough to
Oh.
mention the work that we were doing with New Stitch a Day at the time. And that was definitely a situation where you just saying, "Hey, this guy's doing something cool," that gave me that validation and that confidence to that maybe, okay, maybe I should stick with this and keep exploring. So I very much appreciate that, and I'm sure that you've affected many other people in the same way.
And you continue to do that. You really have continued to focus on the basics and knowledge for new knitters and early knitters. And I think these summits are amazing. They're amazing for people to participate in, and they're the format is like just the right size of information at one time, and they're amazing for people like me to participate in because it exposes us to a whole new group of people that we don't know. And I love doing that. Last time when we did that hangout thing, that was so much fun. I love talking to people who are knitting, and I just think you're doing really cool work in a really just the right level that people need.
I appreciate that. And we're grateful to have teachers like
Mhm.
you on board who have that expert level of knowledge, but know how to communicate it to people that are still early on in their journey so that they can be joining us on stage as their own experts. And I feel that way about all of our teachers. We have a really great lineup for this event. For people who want to find out more about what you're doing, first they should come to the Fearless Knitters Summit to hear you guys
Absolutely.
talk. You guys are doing 2 sessions on lace and on knitting with natural yarns.
Yeah, it's actually called Get Yarn Smart, and it's really about the characteristics of yarn that affect your knitting. It's four things that to know about yarn that will influence your knitting. And I do have all my swatches and stuff are knit in our yarn.
Wonderful. Yeah. So we'll have links to that in the description for everybody that you
Hmm.
can go and register for that. It's 100% free to participate in this 4-day event. And we have even more amazing teachers just like Anne that are going to be speaking throughout it.
Yeah,
But
really
also
great
they can
people.
If people want to check out your yarns, where should they go?
Barenakedwools.com, and you can find all of my patterns and all of our yarns there. All of our other opportunities like the yarn subscription and the retreats that we do and all that stuff, all on the website. And then we have Instagram, and I'm at Knitspot and at Bare Naked Wools on Instagram and Facebook and Pinterest.
Wonderful. People go out there, follow Anne. She's a great source of inspiration. And the yarns are absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Again, we're super excited to have you involved. Thank you again for doing this. And
oh, my pleasure.
So we'll see you at the event.
I can't wait.